I really don't think it is healthy for parents to be venting about the other parent to their kids. I just don't think that's okay. Like, I have never heard of a situation where that is okay.
Where that works
well. Sorry, where it's a healthy thing. Hey guys, welcome back to another episode.
Welcome. We're Honey, We Need a Chat.
Honey, We Need a Chat.
That's the podcast name. We are a podcast all about communication in relationships, and we believe that when communication dies, bad things happen. So we chat.
I just realized I can't hear you.
I can hear me. We're back.
Tech issues, tech resolved. Issues resolved.
Whoop, whoop. All right, well, we're going to dive right in because we are on a tight schedule today.
And we've got a kid that is distracted.
And we do, yes, temporarily. So we'll see how well that lasts.
Yeah.
But T-Chat, hello.
Yeah. Hello.
How are you going today?
I'm good. How are you today?
I'm all right, yeah.
Yeah, how are you out of 10?
Probably a 7.
Yeah?
Yeah. I've had a lot on my mind the last few days.
Yeah? You want to share or?
Yeah,
Off mic.
One of the things that came out in New Zealand was that I struggle to feel peace and joy and that kind of thing, just because of how my life has panned out a little bit. And so the last few days I've been wrestling a little bit with not being able to just enjoy. Like, I'll look out at the kids and like they're having fun, but I feel burdened or anxious or whatever. So just had a bit of processing going on for me.
What's the anxiety?
No, there's no. It's knowing. That's the thing, is there's never, and well, not never. There's often not an anxiety that's like, oh, I'm worried about this thing, but it's like I'm worried all the time, and so even when
like
I don't have things,
hurt themselves or
no, not about that. It's more things like it's usually health related, so I'll be worried about something for me, and then I'll find something on the kids, and then
our kids have been sick this week. We all have been, which is one
classic
thing. And,
winter.
And our youngest has been getting some hivey stuff on his body.
But that doesn't stress me out. It's things like he's got swollen lymph nodes. So I'm like, does he have cancer? Or like I'll have a sore leg and I'll be like, do I have a tumor? Like my brain just goes from one thing to another. And when one thing resolves itself, it has to find another thing. And it's not always health related. It's like I'll get stuck on like an argument in my head or just stuck on things that aren't even real. And it's really debilitating for me. So I wrestle with that. And then I also wrestle with how to work on that, and I wrestle with where it came from and all this stuff. So
are you able to wrestle through those things and try and work out like where did it come from?
Yeah, I mean, I'm very aware of where it came from, and I am usually able to, when I'm aware of it, I'm able to set it aside, but it gets really exhausting having to be aware of it and then set it aside rather than it just being like a natural thing. So for a normal person to be like, oh, the family's all having a really good time, they would just feel peace and joy and be like, oh, this is nice. Whereas I have to be like, hang on, it's a good time. Like, recognize it's not a stressful time, it's a good time. And then I have to mentally, physically set aside the anxiety to feel the joy. And that's a really exhausting process because it's not a...
To be clear though, just, and I know you know this, but just, we sometimes try and catch the language that we use. You are a normal person. You are a normal person.
Okay, a person that functions the general way that people do in this space.
In this space, cool.
Because there's other things that, I would be a normal person in normal reactions to. But this is just something that is abnormal.
So what do you find helpful in those moments, right? So you're in an anxious situation, you're, whether it's kids going through things or whatever else it is, like what's something that you put in place? And this is off the books. This is off script.
Off script,
That's the one, not off the books. This is for free. What are some things that you put in place? Because this has been something that you and I speak about a lot. And another thing that our listeners, especially our male listeners, write in about is how do we better understand our partners? You know what I mean? So getting that sort of an insight from you is going to be helpful for me, but also for anyone else that's trying to support someone that's struggling with the things that you're struggling with.
It's a hard one because I'm an internal processor until I'm stressed. Then I need to externally process or I don't know what's happening. So when I'm stressed, I kind of freeze up because I don't even know. It's not like I can say, I need this from you. I'm just really clogged up. So
Well, it might not be a thing that you need from me, but it's more about what's the thing that you just need, right?
Yeah, well, that's what I'm kind of getting at is like I do need to process it, but I don't have that. Whereas normally I'd be processing stuff on my own. Like in a normal situation where I'm not stressed, I'd be just like thinking about it, processing it, and then I'd share it with you when I am like ready.
Mm-hmm.
When I get stressed like this, I actually need to externally process it or I get really stuck. Whereas we figured out you're the opposite. So when you're stressed, you need to internally process, whereas normally in a normal day, you'd be externally processing.
Yep.
And so when I see you stressed and I'm like, what's going on? What's going on? It's not actually helpful. But for me, it's actually really helpful if you see me low for you to question me and help me bring it out.
It's so funny because, okay, we had this situation yesterday. I could tell you were stressed. And I'm like, oh, I'm not going to go there because you're stressed. And we've had this conversation so many times.
Yeah.
And it annoys me that I don't remember what you need, right? Like, because again, through the conversations that we've had, I know that when you're stressed, me asking questions is good, but then I see you stressed and my natural response is, well, how I would respond, which is just leave me be. Let me I'm just trying to figure stuff out. I don't like the way that I'm reacting and I don't know why I am, so I need to figure that out myself. Yesterday, you were like, you know, which is fine. You were a little bit snappy. Like I came out and I'm like, are you okay? You're like, yes, I'm fine. I'm fine. I'm like, all right, cool. I'm just going to walk away. I'll come back into my office and shut the door. But what you're saying is that actually in that, maybe not in that moment, but coming back to that and saying and exploring that more. Is that right? Like,
even in the moment.
In the moment as well would have been helpful.
I think because I'm not somebody who's like, I really struggle to put my stuff on people. So if I'm low or stressed, I don't want to bring other people down. I know that I do in terms of mood, but I don't want to do that. And I also don't want to be like, here's all my crap and I'll just dump it on you. So it's like that kind of classic joke where they're like, it's like a meme of a cranky cat or something. They're like, my husband asked me 3 times what was wrong. And then he stopped asking and I was going to tell him on the 4th time. It's kind of like that. It's like, if you come out and say, are you all right? I'm not going to just be like, well, this, and this. Like, I really struggle to just
put it out
because it's a lot. And so I almost need, which is kind of not fair, but I almost need like coaxing to get it out of my head.
Yeah.
And not in like are you good? You're cranky, which is not how you do it. But just some people might. So yeah, I don't know. It's just probably there's a number of things that would be helpful. Habits and stuff that help me be mindful. Like even counseling probably is helpful in the long run for this sort of stuff long term. Talking about it with you, processing it, having time to myself, all of that stuff is really helpful. But it's
so something that you've got a lot better at is giving yourself permission to walk away.
Yeah.
Right. So that's something, because again, like, and this is the hard part of a relationship and helping the other person is understanding what we've said before is, you know, I deal with situations the way that I want it to be dealt with me. I don't know if that came out clearly, but like, so I came out, I'm like, all right, Amy, do you need some time by yourself? But I didn't dig deeper. I'm like, oh, you just need some time. Because that's what I need. Sometimes I just need time. Yeah. Like that's it. I don't really need to process it. Sometimes I don't need to really process it. I just need time.
You don't need to externally process it.
Exactly. That's what I mean. Sorry. So I need that time to internally process it. And if I internally process it, I usually external to a point, but maybe not as much, and I'm good. I'm sweet. Yeah, and that's the thing too and that's just like continual communication, that conversation, and we've had this conversation many, many, many times, and I'm still not remembering it, but that's just, again, a commitment to keep on trying to grow on this stuff. But
yeah, and the flip side works for me too. Whenever you're low, I'm like, so what's going on?
Yeah, I know.
Are you okay?
It is so frustrating. I love you dearly, but
I'm doing it because
stop asking me if I'm all right.
Anyway, how are you out of 10?
I'm good. I reckon I'm probably an 8 or 9.
Yeah, you're kicking some butt.
I'm kicking some butt. Yeah, I don't know.
It's because you didn't hear all your wife's problems last night.
Yeah, I know. I slept well. But no, I mean, our youngest is sleeping through.
He's doing really well.
The night now, which is amazing. It's a huge difference in my energy levels. But yeah, just I think there's a few things that are going well. You're going away this weekend, so that's a... No,
I'm looking forward to it.
But what are you doing this weekend?
I've
Share
got
with the peeps.
an intensive for my coaching course, which I'm really excited about because none of it it's all been online learning to this point. And this is these next 4 days, or Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. I get to kind of see it play out, the actual process. So I get to be involved in that. And then afterwards, I basically can start coaching, which I'm really excited about.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to have a better idea of what it needs to look like and start putting things in place on the other side. It's just been hard. It's always hard. Long distance education in any kind of capacity is difficult. So it's going to be fun to actually do something in person.
This is the first thing that you've completed, like first course you've completed, which is awesome.
Yeah. Well, we haven't completed it yet.
Well, that you will complete. But I think that what's really cool is, again, just your exploration of all the different interests you've had, because you've got so many interests and it's all coming together in a way, you know, through the podcast, through your social media stuff, through the coaching. It's all coming, sort of wrapping up into this big bundle of stuff
that makes
which is
more
awesome.
sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's like a puzzle that's been put together from all these different pieces. So very exciting.
Yeah.
Yep. So there's 5 days away: Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, back on Wednesday.
Send help with the kids. That's
T-Chat, guys.
T-Chat.
That's where we're at.
Chat.
So this week's topic is it's not necessarily an easy one, and it's a complicated. I would go out on a limb and say this is a complicated aspect of life for every single couple. Not because it all looks the same, because it will all look extremely different, but I think every couple, I know every couple comes into relationship navigating this dynamic. You don't even know what the topic is.
Nope.
This is Reddit stories over the topic of extended family and family of origin. Yeah.
Was this what a write-in?
No.
Topic? No.
Although we did have a write-in. Our first write-in was a family of origin related one.
Okay.
All right. So relationships and extended family.
Honey, we need to chat.
Everybody's molded by their family of origin. They bring that into relationships, and then that is what impacts how you interact with each other. That impacts the culture that you create together. But it also is a complicated one to navigate because your family is now my family and my family is now your family. And so it's a whole big area.
Shebang.
And we've got some stories here that are related to this that we will dive into now from r/relationships.
Groovy.
First one, my wife, 35 female of 10 years, thinks my parents, 65 female and 70 male, don't want to make an effort to see our son. My parents think my wife doesn't want them to see their grandchild. They are both wrong. How do I intervene to fix this? That was all the title.
Oh, cool.
In simple terms, my parents and my wife have different ways of communicating and similar expectations that the other party should be the one to initiate interactions. I was away in a different country for 4 months for work and asked my parents to look after my wife and child. They texted and called her at the beginning, but stopped suddenly. While I was away, I didn't ask either party whether they were in contact with each other because I wanted my parents to foster a relationship with my wife that wasn't going through me, if that makes sense. I only knew that my wife went to visit once, a few weeks after I left. Once I finally got back, my wife was upset with my parents because they stopped calling, and she felt they didn't care to see our child. She showed me the texts and call logs, and from her perspective, it seems she is absolutely right. That made me feel upset with my parents too. I went to see my parents and confronted them about that. They said they felt my wife didn't want them to see the grandchild because they made plans twice and she canceled. That's not really fair, as one, she went to visit once, although they complained it was a short visit, and two, she canceled once as our child was ill. I knew about this, but they were not aware of the reason. 3, the second time she canceled, she actually asked to reschedule for dinner instead of breakfast because they had a tough night, taking care of a toddler. My parents had plans for dinner, and instead of suggesting another day, they stopped communicating because they didn't want to keep getting shut down. I heard them out, and from their point of view, it seems they are right. I can see both of them are wrong in this case. I don't know how to fix it, though. My parents are super stubborn, and they don't want to call my wife anymore because they have learned their lesson that they are not wanted. My wife is really hurt and doesn't want to go visit or have them over yet until she feels more comfortable. If I have to take sides, I 100% support my wife. Normally, I would feel this is a minor disagreement. However, we are moving far away in less than a month and are not coming back until Christmas. My parents will not be able to travel to visit us before then. I really want my child to have a chance to see grandparents while they are with us, so I am anxious to get together. At the same time, I understand, respect, and support my wife's feelings, and I don't want to push for a visit that she's not comfortable with. I also want to leave in relatively good terms with family, thinking that we normally spend Christmas together. How do I fix this? Big one.
Going into a relationship it's hard when you realize actually you're not just gaining a partner.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, well, it's not, it's just reality is you're not just gaining a partner. Gaining a partner is hard because you've got to learn a whole other person and all the things that we've been speaking about earlier. Like, it's a lot of work and learning.
For a big reward.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. But at the same time, it's like, we need to also do that with our extended family to a point too, and that's sometimes something that we don't really go into a relationship in our mind. Like, we don't really have that in our minds when we enter a relationship. We have the person in mind, and that's it. And I think something that's important is when I commit to you, I'm actually committing to your family as well, and the baggage that you have, vice versa. It's so the commitment to the family is actually still really important. Some people's family situations are quite difficult, but at the same time, I'm also committing to be there with you through that.
Yeah.
Like if that was your situation. So that's, I feel like sometimes we forget that side of a relationship.
That dynamic that plays in, I think what both of you, when you become a family, are becoming a separate entity. So you're kind of removing from your families. So your relationships are changing from your family, and you're also adopting in this new version of relationship of your partner's family. So it's not like when we got married, my mum and dad were automatically your mum and dad. They were your in-laws who were now slightly removed from their daughter too. So there's all these dynamics that come into play. I think in my head, when you're in a relationship with somebody, you engage with their family through their lens. So you're engaging with their family through a supportive way that reinforces their lens. So if they've got really strong boundaries with their family because it's been traumatic or whatever has happened for them, you respect and support them in a healthy, uplifting, encouraging way through that. If they're really close to their family and their family's a huge priority, if you come in and you're like, I don't want anything to do with your family, that's not going to work, because that's their priorities, their value. Their lens of their family is that this is a really important part of my life. So you need to find a way to support them through their lens. And so I think this is hard because it seems like he values this family connection. He values this relationship. He wants to foster it. There's been a part where he's been removed. So they've been interacting together without the kind of neutral space that is him, that connects them. And I think it's beautiful when that works. Like, it's beautiful that I can interact with your mom and you can interact with my family. Like, we've got each other's families we have a personal relationship with now. But I think there is a time and place for you being the in-between between me and your family when it's needed, and the same for me, because that's kind of, you know them, you love them, and you have an intimate understanding of them in a way that I don't yet, and same for my family. So I feel like he is stuck in the middle. I think he's in the right place because he is in the middle. That's the role that he's in. I was thinking too, like, they both sides seem to be able to really clearly explain why they're upset to him. So in my head, I'm like, why don't you just explain to each other?
Yeah.
Because I don't think this situation doesn't sound like, oh, it's broken now. It's like, it's actually just a misunderstanding and probably a little bit of stubbornness or whatever going in place to make it so they're struggling to hear each other's perspectives. But it's not a broken situation. It's not like a horrible trauma that's been done. It just sounds like there's a misunderstanding and it needs to be communicated, not just to him, but to each other.
Yeah. Well, there's obviously, with every one of these stories, there's a lot of things, a lot of information we don't have.
Yeah,
right.
Absolutely.
One thing that we did hear is he was talking about his parents and how they're a bit stubborn and how they're like, well, fine, we learnt our lesson. We're not going to reach out anymore. If I was him, so he's asking the question, how do I amend this? And that's a difficult thing to put yourself in the middle of. He's got a month. Right. So it's like, it's this challenge as well of like, okay, well, we're actually moving away. So, if they were staying close together, you're like, oh, cool. We've got this journey, we've got this time to build that. And you put incremental things in place together. I feel like, I don't know, if this was me, what I'd be doing with my parents would be saying, okay, well, what's the relationship that you want to have? And then same with you, I'd say, well, what's the relationship you want to have with my parents, and work from that way. And like, cool, how can we, because it's a lot of unsaid stuff, right? This is where a lot of the communication issues happen, is that there's no communication. And it's just assumptions and so forth. And they're both getting offended over things that are just not accurate, which is not true. So it's trying to bring those things in play, and like you said, have the conversation together, like bring them and let's work on it together. But I think helping each individual work out what they want it to look like and how can we actually get there, and then working through their perspective as well. Remember, you've got your lens, they've got their lens. Are we willing to commit to learning each other's lenses?
I think that's a really good way of going about it. Asking, where is it that you want this to be?
Nailed it.
Yeah. And I think if you're able to communicate to both sides, which it seems like he is, it seems like he's supportive and understanding. And I love that he's saying at the end of the day, I support my wife, because I think that's a really important dynamic.
And that's still hard to hear as a parent too, right? To be one day my kids are gonna,
I know. Looking at it from that lens. One day they're going to support their spouse over us.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I get that point from his parents' side too, and I think we've read a couple of stories over the period of this podcast where it's been that tension with in-laws and so forth. And a lot of it has been just that transition of relationship, and I think that will take people a long time to transition from being the parent to being which is a lot more involved and everything, to be more of a sideline character in their story.
Yeah, exactly.
It's gonna be hard. It's
hard.
Yeah, and
it's important.
Oh, absolutely.
And it's a necessary transition for every parent this child has become an adult. That's a necessary transition.
But if the parent's going to be holding on to that with bitterness and stubbornness, that's where the difficulties happen.
Yeah, which is why I think that conversation of where do you want it to be, what is it that you want this relationship to look like. And even saying, this is what I want the relationship to look like, just so you know, I want everyone to have a really good time together. I'm not coming at this from I want you to be in your place. I think there's, a gentle listening to both sides is really important.
And an attitude of curiosity.
Yeah. Unpicking where those hurts came from and what that felt and meant to the people that happened. I think that they can work it out. Cool. This is a heavy one, this next one. My 40 female husband, 42 male, has a verbally abusive father, 70 male. How can I support my husband? I've been with my husband for 8 years now, and his father has always tried to tear him down. 20 minutes after meeting his father 8 years ago, his father asked me, how do you like being with someone so lazy? There was not a trace of sarcasm. I was shocked and said as evenly as I could, actually, it's really nice being with someone who can get me to relax. I worked a really demanding job at the time, and that was 100% true, but I would never consider my husband lazy. My husband is literally the sweetest, most caring, hardworking guy I've ever met. His father has always been very into chores and work as a moral indicator, and has also exhibited controlling behaviors towards his wife that I've seen firsthand. He has tried many times to bait me into joining him in bad-mouthing my husband by making it somewhat joking after the first time. But I have never joined in because the things he says are always so rude and hurtful, and I can see my husband just fuming inside when they are said. His father will often reference how lazy or slow my husband is, or how he doesn't know anything, or about how he can't manage money, or is out of shape, overweight, eats too much. None of these things are true since I've known him. He will frequently say these things in an effort to embarrass my husband. We often talk about it later, and I try to bolster my husband's self-esteem as best I can, but it's clear it's not a joke to him, and that this has been going on for a very long time. My husband has started going to therapy, and while I think his father loves him, he's always very verbally rough with him, and I don't think it's going to change without intervention. It's really hard to witness, though my husband has always asked me not to intervene in fears of making the comments worse. I have a past of being verbally abused by my parents as a child, so my instinct is to want to protect him and stand up for him. So it's really hard to sit on my hands. I will often interject and either deflect the blame from my husband, oh, it was my fault the hot water went out, I love to take hot long showers, or try to turn it into a joke like, haha, does anyone know about brake pads? I feel like I should be doing more to support my husband and tangentially myself, since it's becoming increasingly difficult for me to be around his father and listen to his snide comments about my husband without saying something sharp or angry. I would have thought that literal years of me stepping in on these comments would have been enough of an eye-opener, but apparently it's not. Is there a better way I can support my husband? Is there a way I can help undo the hit to his self-esteem he takes every time he's around his father, more than just talking to him about it and letting him vent?
I think we need to be careful in what we respond here because, again, he is seeing a therapist and so forth, and I think this level, like with abuse and stuff, it's not a clear cut, oh, just do this.
Oh, 100%.
I think there's resources and stuff out there which we should probably try and put on our website or something, or send it out to our mail list, especially after this episode, on resources where people can go to if they're struggling with verbal abuse. So sign up to our website and we can send that out after this episode. There's two things that are in my head. One is passive and one is active. So passive, I'm trying to put myself in the scenario. Say your mum did that to you, right? My response would be like, why would you say that? Oh, that's not funny. Or like, yeah, I'm sure you would struggle with those things too. Like, put it back on them. Like, but I don't think that's helpful at all.
Yeah, especially since he's asked her not to do that.
Yeah, exactly. But I think there's things you could do, like just not respond.
Yeah.
Just don't respond to
or just make a funny face, be like,
yeah, exactly. That's what I mean. It's like,
that?
yeah, it's like, that's weird. Just like those sorts of things. Like, you know, it doesn't have to be snarky back, but just like, that was a weird thing to say.
Yeah.
You know, like I think,
Well,
I don't know.
true.
I feel like that's been said to me before. It cuts deep.
It is a weird thing to say.
I know. So there's that option. The other part too is, again, taking more of a team approach of like, oh, no, that's not okay. We're not okay with that sort of talk.
We're actually going to leave now.
Well, not even just leave, but just, you know, let's say hypothetically he's like, oh, you're so lazy, and both have an agreement of saying back like, no, he's not. And that's not okay to say that.
Yeah.
You know, and that's it.
And just shutting it down.
And if he keeps going on about it, it's like, yep, no, it's, but it just, exactly, just shutting down. It's like, no, that's not okay with us. We don't really like that.
That's a good
sort
idea.
of talk. But having that joint approach, so it's not her or him, it's like together, just say no. And don't need to go deeper in it if you, to start with. I think, you know, if it was, we don't know the dad, if he was in a healthy position to actually have a conversation about it, that would say obviously have the conversation about it. Yeah. I think stating that it's not okay to start with is a good start.
Yeah. I think it sounds like, and I think all we can go off is that he's not in a healthy place to have a conversation and that he is abusive. And in that case, I don't know that there's much you can make them see. And it's really easy with people like this. It's really easy to, I know the feeling, like I can feel it right now, like this frustration, like I just want to show them. I want to show them how silly this is, but I'm not sure. That's almost feeding into the game or whatever it is for people that do this. It's almost feeding into that energy. Like that's what they want in some way. Obviously the dad, when you're an abuser, you're getting something from that, whatever it is. And so it's almost like flipping that so that you're not giving that reaction is the more offensive thing to them. Sort of like what you just said, like, that's a weird comment. Yeah. This is so off topic, but I saw a video today. There's a guy that mumbles to people in interviews and he was mumbling to one of the guys from Planet of the Apes. And so what he'll do is he'll like say a question. He'll be like, so what is it like working with a team that was just if you could like anybody of the people? And so then the person's like, sorry, what was that? And they're on a red carpet, so it's loud and hard to hear. And then they just say, on the team, like if you were to be working with these people, like what? And if you could have that. And the guy's face is just like,
I couldn't even pretend to try and like recopy what you've just done. That's really good.
It was really hard. But then, and at the end, this guy in particular, he does it to lots of people, but this guy was because Planet of the Apes, he's like, oh yeah, and he does like his ape noises back. But I was thinking something like this, if you wanted to really mess with someone, something like this, like just to be like, what was that? And get them to repeat the thing. Sorry, I could not hear you. What did you say? But I'm really sorry. Can you say that again just a little bit slower? Like getting them to repeat the ridiculousness that they're doing.
It'd just be annoying.
Yeah, just be annoying. And they'd be like, I don't even want to talk to you. Yeah. That's probably not actually helpful for a situation. But I was like, that's what came to mind. I was like, you could just mess with them. But obviously you need to be doing what your partner needs from you. And when you've grown up in a situation like that, I can imagine everything that is tied into is so much deeper than just a surface level conversation. It's not like my wife made a fool of my dad in this comment, so now I feel okay. Like you're so tied into this identity that has been built. And so I think listening to that person, especially when they are in professional help, they've got like resources coming in, they've got people, someone helping them, listening to what it is they need, I think is actually the most important thing. The thing that came to mind was, I think if this was you and I could see this pattern and I just could see it over and over, I think I would be really encouraging you or sitting down with you and saying, what boundaries do we need to be putting in place? Do we need to keep seeing your dad? And I would never jump to cut your family off. I know some people are like, no, cut them out. They don't serve you, cut them out. And I think that we're way too trigger happy with that in this world. But there is a line where you don't just keep.
I think that's like a possibility, but I don't think he would just not see him anymore. I think it'd be a matter of like, I think there needs to be something addressed first.
Oh, 100%. You know, but that's more what I mean. Like having that conversation and be like, how is this affecting you? Because a lot of the time you feel an obligation to your family and you can't, it's really hard when you're in it, regardless of the dynamics, to see outside of that. So what a gift that a partner can bring is a bit more perspective without the obligation side. So I think it would be having that conversation with you and saying what boundaries are really, like, what do we need to be doing? What boundaries are good to put in place? And if it did come out, actually, we don't need to keep being around this. I think I would have that conversation and say, that's really not okay to say.
Yeah.
And actually, if you keep talking like that, we're actually just going to leave because it's not helpful for us. Or addressing it in that kind of way, being clear, we're not going to be putting up with this. That's kind of what I think I would go about it.
Yeah, and I'd love to hear from our chatters on Patreon too. So, chatters, jump on Patreon and share with us, like, if you've got experience in this, or if someone's given you some advice and wisdom on that, we'd love to hear from you, because that's, again, another thing we would love to put out on our socials and so forth, following up from this episode, is a bit more resources, because, and again, our chatters are an amazing part of this podcast. The community that we've created, one, your support is just, amazing. But two, your input into these conversations and the podcast is really invaluable. So we'd love to grab that and share that with other people as well. So please, chatters, jump back onto Patreon and share your thoughts on this topic.
Hey guys, just wanted to pop in and take a sec to talk about the extra content you can find over on our Patreon and our Spotify subscription. We have a fun little community growing over there with extra episodes, extra stories. We're also going to have resources, messages back and forth, and also submitting listener stories through that portal as well. So
also outro themes.
If you want to be a part of our closer knit community here at Honey, We Need a Chat, please hop on over to Patreon or Spotify subscriptions and join us there. We would love to see you.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks. All right, last story. My 22 female mum, 49 female, keeps unloading all her problems on me, and it gets exhausting. Just to make things clear, I absolutely love my mum. She's a good person, and I know she loves me very much. I live in a separate country from my mum, so I always call her at least once a week so we can catch up and stay in contact. I enjoy talking with my mum, but every time we call, she unloads all her stress onto me. My mom and dad do not have a very good relationship. They were divorced for about 8 years, then got remarried a few years ago. But I have no idea why, because they are not compatible in a relationship. They want entirely different things, and my dad doesn't treat my mom how she deserves to be treated. But regardless, I love them both, and I support them in their remarrying. My mom constantly unloads her stress onto me about my dad. Something he said or did was rude or inconsiderate, how he never lets her do something without his control. These are all things I generally expect from my dad because that's how he's always been, at least while I've been around. My mum is fully aware of this too, but she chose to stay with him regardless and complains about him all the time, not just to me, but to anyone in her life who's willing to listen. I'm a very empathetic person, so I unfortunately have a tendency to take on other people's stress. Since this is something she does every time we talk, we usually call 2 to 4 hours. Whoa. It's very mentally draining for me. It also makes me stressed about the next time we all talk. I know the obvious answer here might be to just talk to her about how I feel, but I don't know how to do that without making her feel like she can't talk to me about her stress. I'm happy that my mum feels like she can talk to me about these things, and I'm happy to listen. I don't want to ruin that, but I also can't handle the amount of stress she unloads on me. Not to mention the amount she complains about my dad also negatively affects my own view of him, which I feel is unfair to him because while, yes, he is a person with issues, he is still my dad and I love him. And I know he just needs help like everybody does with their problems. No matter how many times I've given her my opinion, she does nothing about it, and the cycle of complaining continues. Any advice on how to talk to her about this?
For our older audience and our age audience, I really don't think it is healthy for parents to be venting about the other parent to their kids. I just don't think that's okay. Like I have never heard of a situation where that is okay.
Where that works well.
Sorry, where it's a healthy thing. Like it's always, what she said there, she's an empathetic person. She takes on people's stuff. I think that every kid would take on their parents' stuff when it's about the other parent. I just don't think it's a healthy thing because you'll find yourself in between your parents the whole time trying to fix their relationship. But it's different than a friend's relationship, like two friends together. This is your parents. There's so much more weight behind that. So parents, don't vent to your kids about your other parent, about your partner or ex-partner, whatever else. It's not helpful, and I don't think that's healthy to put onto your kids.
Yeah. I'm sure a lot of people whose parents separate or have troubles have the same dynamic where they're like, I love both my parents and they're both flawed and they both input into how the relationship has broken down. And of course, you're not normally going to think that you're the one that's done the worst thing when you've been in a situation like that. So having two sides of a story play out when you are so emotionally connected to both sides is so tough, especially when there aren't clear boundaries on the communication that happens around it. It's tough regardless. It's going to be tough regardless because you love both these people. And then, extrally tough when there's a pattern of this kind of complaining. And I know she says probably the easy thing is to say how this makes me feel, but I don't know how to do that without ruining that. Coming from someone who's kind of navigated that dynamic, the reality, you do need to ruin that. The reality is ruin, I'm putting in quotation marks, you're not ruining that. You putting a boundary in place with that is not you ruining your mom's ability to engage with you. It's actually a healthy thing for you and for her and for your dad. It's actually being the person willing, if you do it in a gentle, loving, kind way.
But it still has to be firm though too.
Firm,
like
yeah.
I've just seen situations where someone will bring that up with their parents and it's still wish-washy.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I just don't think it's probably good for you. And there's still, just nothing will change.
Yeah.
But if it's like, no, this can't be our relationship.
Yeah.
This can't be the conversations.
Yeah.
I love you and have the conversations with you, but just not these conversations because I don't cope well with them.
Yeah. And I know firsthand how hard that kind of boundary is to put in place especially when you haven't had that. Like that's not how you interact. You are so good at boundaries to the point where you're too trigger happy with boundaries sometimes. You're like, no, done.
Yeah.
Not to that extent most of the time, but it can, if you're pushed, it can get to the point where it's like, actually, no, I'm not going to even engage in that.
Yeah.
And I'm on the other extreme where I'm like, but I love them and I don't know how to blah, blah, blah. And neither's healthy. Both, if you go to the either extreme of that, both is unhealthy. It is a whole bunch of gray, unfortunately.
Yeah.
It's not black and white. And so it is really, really hard. It is really, really hard to put those boundaries in place. And it's really, really hard to stick to them afterwards. It's really, really hard, especially if you're in a relationship where the person that you're putting a boundary in place with doesn't accept that or doesn't see your side or isn't open to conversations like that. Because then you're probably going to have a whole different dynamic added as well. Like why do you not love me? Like, why don't you care about me? Whatever it is that could play out in that. It's so tough.
Yeah. I'm just not a fan of talking about someone in a negative light for the sake of talking about someone in a negative light. When someone tries to talk to me about someone else, it could be a difficult situation or whatever, but if it's just to tell me how bad this person is, I'm quite comfortable in saying, like, I actually don't need to hear that.
Yeah.
Like, it's, but if they're talking to me about, I had a chatter message me the other day about something, that they've gone through, which is quite difficult. And they shared their experience, but it was with the aim of working through it. I'm all for that. I think that's very, very healthy. And I love those conversations and I love journeying with people with those conversations. But if it's just the continual name bashing, just putting down, just whinge, like woe is me, ongoing. I just don't have time for that. Because I just don't think, I don't want to be that sort of person. I don't want to be that person that just talks negative about people.
And I hear you say that and I'm like, 100%. I have no idea how to become that because for me, when I interact with people, their feelings have always been the priority. Always, to the point where I will replay conversations and be like, did I make them feel this way about that? Even when I have feelings about them, even if I'm like, no, I don't like this person or whatever it is, I still don't know. There's been very few times where I've been able to be super straightforward. I actually have a photo that pops up on my memories. I had a very frustrating situation with someone that very much overstepped after my father passed away. I had a phone call with them and I took a photo of my face afterwards because I get hives all the way down my neck and I was red and it pops up on my memories every year.
This was one conversation I wanted to step into.
I'm so glad you weren't around for it because it would have, you would have been fine. But it was just, and if I felt pushed to the point where I said what I said, then it was needed, more than needed. But that's rare for me to be able to actually, I'll say what I think, but if I think it's gonna hurt I really struggle to know how to be a little bit confrontational in a nice way. So hearing you say that, I love it. I just don't know how to do it.
At the same time, I haven't I'm less extreme as I used to be, right? So I used to be, don't talk to me like that. And I would cut people off, right? But what you've done, so another situation recently, someone did something stupid and I've got some friends that are don't like that person anymore because they did something stupid. Because of what you've been sort of encouraging me with, of having an attitude of curiosity.
Yeah.
And a moment doesn't dictate a person.
No.
So that moment, this person did something very stupid. He was under the influence and he did something very, very stupid, and he's hurt some people.
Yeah.
They just don't like him anymore.
Yeah.
I now have had this attitude of curiosity of like, well, why did he respond that way? Why, like, what was it? Like, under the influence is one thing, but I don't use that as an excuse. Like, what is actually happening in that person's life to make him react that way? And so for me, I'm like, yeah, this person did something really, really stupid, and he frustrated me so much. It was so dumb and so hurtful to my other friends.
Yeah.
And I'm like, now I'm trying to be this peacekeeping person. I'm like, all right, I think it was a moment. I think it was this. I think it was that.
Good job, baby.
But it's just, again, it's you said about how you see me and like how you get there. You've got me there too. You know what I mean? Like, it's always growing, it's always evolving, and it's something you just need to be committed to working on.
It's a slow sharpening of each other and finding that kind of balance, which I think is, and on the flip side, has been wearing off on me too. I have been better at communicating what I need.
Absolutely.
Quicker.
Even to me, you've been better at communicating with what you need. You've always communicated with me, but sometimes you don't communicate what you need.
Yeah.
And that's been something that you've really grown in.
Yeah. Or I'll be too vague, too wishy-washy, like you said earlier. So anyway, all of that to say, I think there are so many dynamics at play. It's super tough. It's not going to be I don't think there's any quick fix to this. I don't think all of a sudden you say one thing and then it's not going to happen again. I have had times where I've had to gently figure out how to have that conversation, and I've had it, and then it's come up again, as it does. When you're in relationship, you have patterns and you fall very easily back into those patterns. And so then I've had to be like, oh, I've already talked about this. How do I figure out how to bring it up again? But just slowly over time, it's become a quicker and quicker thing, even from my passive kind of perspective. So I think she's recognized what's healthy, what's unhealthy for her in this situation. She knows it's not a question to her. Figuring out how to say that. Yes, she wants to keep her mom feeling loved. Yes, she doesn't want to break that relationship, but you can still bring out those boundaries in a way that's going to strengthen it for yourself and for your mum and for your dad, even if it's a little bit uncomfortable and painful. Yeah. Not fun though. Families are the most complicated thing in life, I reckon. The most complicated thing, relationships. And like we said earlier, it comes with massive reward. Yeah. Like love is huge, and the love you feel for your family it's just like beyond explanation and can unfortunately be tied up with stuff that's really painful, but it's also a huge reward when it's healthy, and working towards building health in these spaces, whatever that might look like, is really important.
Absolutely.
That's been our extended family chat, extended relationships. What a fun episode. Let us know your thoughts, guys. We'd love to hear from you, what your experiences have been with extended family, what's been helpful for you.
Cool.
We'll talk to you later.
Awesome. Good chat. Thanks, guys.